This is Christopher John Bjerknes. It is August 8th, 2025. I'm going to be explaining some of the most esoteric and misunderstood beliefs of the ancient mystery religions, which were adopted by the Christians and the Kabbalists. I'm going to go further into my insights that the earth is seeking to become one integrated living organism, and the role that human beings play as the mind of that organism, and the competition among various human groups to become that mind and to eliminate the other human groups, one of which is kind of a cancer, one of which is our enemy that hates the earth and wants to become the mind of the earth so that it can commit suicide and destroy all of us and the earth. I'm also going to be talking about the Hindu concept of the third eye as the mind's eye that has intuition, that can see past, present, and future all at once, that has insight, and how that relates to my family's conception of the Norwegian weird, spelled W-Y-R-D, and the Viking beliefs related to that. But I want to start off by talking about some of the things that are in the news. Donald Trump is seeking to federalize Washington, DC, and he's trying to pitch that idea that he wants to beautify it, and he wants to chase out the homeless and control the crime in the city. That's not the real reason why he wants to do it. He wants to make Washington, DC Rome again. As I explained in one of my other videos, DC started out as Rome, Capitol Hill, the building where the Capitol is, and that whole area was once called Rome. And the enemy believes that America is the seat of Edom, the Edomite, Amalekite Romans that must be completely destroyed. So federalizing Washington, D.C. creates a corollary to Rome, especially to Vatican City, as the capital of Rome on earth, both clerical and profane, which they want to blow up. As I explained in one of my videos, they may put a nuclear bomb, do a aerial explosion of a nuclear bomb over the Capitol at the State of the Union address or the inauguration, and take out the White House and all of Washington, D.C. to destroy the Edom of the West in one massive strike. So Trump federalizing Washington, D.C. will chase out all the local bureaucrats and make everything that the federal government does a secret. And they will be able to, in secret, expand their tunnels networks and booby trap the entire city with nuclear weapons to be able to wipe it out all at once, and they won't have the prying eyes of any local officials as they do that. Trump is also, by federalizing Washington, D.C., effectively declaring perpetual martial law without having to openly declare it. They anticipate that there is going to be civil unrest, rebellion, and civil war as they artificially manufacture race war and social divisions in the United States as inflation starts to hit from Trump's tariff policies, as Trump's tariff policies fail, because he is not building up American industry to replace the manufacture of the goods and services and agriculture that we need to sustain us if we are to become an autarkic society. There's nothing wrong with tariffs, but they have to be accompanied by internal production and the internal development of the manufacture of goods and the provision of services through education, through robotics, through artificial intelligence. And we are only at the incipient stages of that transition of our economy. So the tariffs are going to bite hard against us and prevent us from transitioning into an economy based on robotics and artificial intelligence, taking over the education systems, the production systems, taking over agriculture and taking over the professions. Doctors, lawyers, etc., are going to be obsoleted by artificial intelligence. But Trump is doing tariffs, which could potentially be tremendously beneficial to the United States, but which are going to harm us because he's not doing the accompanying phase, which has to be the transition of the American economy towards autarky and the internal production of goods and the internal provision of all the services that we need. And as this Epstein scandal heats up, there will be riots and there will be massive protests, and Trump wants to have effective martial law over all of Washington, DC perpetually so that he can keep the mob, the masses, the unwashed out of the city at all times and preserve his disorder and his destruction of the United States and keep us from assembling and protesting against us, as he did when he started to wave the Bible to pander to Christians and illegally and unconstitutionally maced a crowd of people that had assembled and gathered to protest that. So that's what's going on. They're booby-trapping the city so they can blow it up all at once and take out the capital of Rome on the earth as part of their plan to destroy Edom in the pool of the lake of fire of flames that Obadiah 18 says is to completely consume Esau. He wants to maintain martial law over the city without having to declare it and federalize the city so that he can prevent protests and riots and civil unrest as he destabilizes the country. And he wants to be able to secretly wire the whole city with explosives, with atomic bombs, so that he can completely destroy it all at once as the decapitation strike against Edom, and also to expand upon secretly the tunnel and underground network system beneath Washington, D.C., without local officials being involved in it, without there being any permit process or any prying eyes into what it is that he is up to. Another one of the things I've observed that's taking place is I'm starting to see images of ancient Egypt cropping up all over TikTok and X and in the news. And this is part of their, what I describe as their Red Sea trap, where they are upping anti-Semitism and promoting anti-Semitism, especially among whites, so that they can lure the anti-Semites into the Red Sea and then drown them. So all this imagery being foisted upon us is Kabbalistic sympathetic magic to lead us into the Red Sea. And the Red Sea is very much an image of the Marxists of Soviet Russia, Red China, and communist North Korea. They are trying to make all the dissidents, as they've been doing the entire time communism has existed, favorable to communism and view the Reds as if our saviors, and they're going to be our saviors by drowning us in the Red Sea in a pool of our own blood. So that is the Red Sea trap. Keep an eye on that. I was the one, no one else, who said that they were setting this up to mirror the Romans because they view us as the Edomite Amalekite Roman Empire. And we had Musk with his Cecius Maximus and Trump with his armorless imagery of the Holy Roman Empire, etc. I exposed all that. That was my insight alone. And now it is my insight alone to let you know that they are evolving that into the Egyptian Red Sea trap, so that Pharaoh's army of anti-Semites gets all hot and bothered about the Jews and chases them right into the trap that they are setting up for us so that they can drown all of us and utterly exterminate us. And now on to the theme of my presentation. The ancient mystery religions had the mythology that the human being is divided into three types of existence: the body, the mind, and the soul. And this emerged in the Gospels and throughout the New Testament as the concept that there are three forms of life: bios, as in biology, being the body; zoe, being the mind; and psyche, being the soul. And they artificially separated the human being into these three distinct forms of life to pit us against ourselves. And all of that relates back to Plato's concept that we exist as a charioteer pulled by two opposing horses: a black horse, which relates to the body, that tries to drag us down to the earth through our appetites, desires, and lusts, because the body wants to continue to exist. It needs to have sex, it needs to have food, etc. And all those material wants pull the mind down to the earth. The soul and a properly trained mind wants to return back to the source of the soul, the divine sparks, and the ultimate first intellect of God, the monad, the Holy One. So that's the white horse that pulls us up towards God. The Jews adopted that concept. They came up with the terminology of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination of the body, of its appetites, desires, and lusts, to pull the soul and the mind down to the earth so that the body can continue to survive as the corpse of flesh and the vessel for the mind and the soul on the earth. And the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination, the white horse, pulling the mind and the soul up to heaven to an ecstatic reunion, a mystica unica, unio with the Godhead in heaven. So they created this entire mythology which pits us against ourselves. Christians very much adopted this same nonsense so that we view ourselves as inherently evil with the potential for good. If we believe in Jesus Christ, our soul will rise up to heaven. If we do not, and we fall prey to the temptations of Satan, of the appetites, desires, and lusts of our body, we will be trapped in the corpse of flesh and ultimately be doomed to the lake of fire and hell. And hell is in the center of the earth, and the heavens are above the earth. So it's Plato's charioteer being pulled by these two horses one way and the other. And you've seen the cartoons of the angels and the devil whispering into the same person's ears to try to get them to go on one path or the other, either to heaven or to hell. And it's all nonsense, and it keeps the Western man from properly understanding the true nature of our existence. It inhibits science, and it creates all kinds of mythologies that are highly destructive, that I oppose, and that I hope I can lead white Europeans into a far better understanding of what the human being is, the role that the human being plays in the structure of the universe, and how the human being can perceive past, present, and future all at once, very similar to the idea that the ancient Aryans who created Hinduism had of the third eye, that lingered in my family through our Viking roots in the concept of the weird, that you can perceive destiny, and there are omens and other things to help guide you individually and humanity based upon a greater cognition of what we are. And I want to take that out of the mythologies of mysticism and religion and explain in terms of physics and new geometry that I've formulated, how that actually functions as masses and fields and extension in the real universe. The human being is one very complex organism made up of stem cells, the products of those stem cells that develop into tissues and organs and into our central nervous system and our brain. Now, the ancients believed that this division of mind, body, and soul is an analog and a corollary to the Godhead, and that there is the one, the monad, which is distinct from the creation that is made by the demiurge of the material world. And because there is this distinction of the first intellect, the mind of God, and the body, the material universe, there has to be some breath to this that animates all of this in some way so that there is a connection between God, the mind, and the material universe, the body. And that connection is the soul. The Greek concept of the soul is different from this cartoon concept of the soul that evolved in Orthodox Christianity much later to represent this idea that the soul somehow represents godliness and that it's this immortal thing that leaves the body and then returns to God. It is that, but not in that cartoonish Christian image of it. Instead, the soul is actually a binding force that animates the body so that it is a vessel and a vehicle for the mind. And in the same sense, the soul of God is the binding force that allows God to relate to material creation. And the soul leaves the body so that it can reunite with God, but it is that animating force that combined the mind to the body that then leaves the body so that it can combine the mind of man with the mind of God. It's a much more sophisticated understanding of what soul is in the Greek conception to the corrupted Christian and then later Judaic, Kabbalistic appropriation of these Greek ideas that the Orphics, the Samothracians, and the Eleusinians had, that there is this tripartite, this trichotomy to the human being. I want to wash all of that nonsense away and to teach people that the mind, the body, and the soul are one integrated thing and that we are not tearing ourselves apart. One of the reasons why people are so psychologically unstable and go through these crises of adolescence and midlife, and women, especially women who haven't had children in their 30s, also go through a crisis. The Germans have a word for it, Weibhexen or something like that, where they start to panic the way that many men do in their midlife crisis and the way that adolescents do. That's because we're not properly taught that we are an integrated being and that we have this diversity of options to choose from to perpetuate ourselves, our kin, our people, our nations, and humanity, and so that we can survive. These are good things. They should not be a stress. They should not be the concept that we have to fight this inherent evil force within us or we're going to perish and lose our immortal souls. That's all complete nonsense. It creates unnecessary anxiety, unnecessary stress, and it pits us against ourselves. It makes us enemies of ourselves. It urges us to die so that we can be cleansed of our bodies and cleansed of our evil inclination, which is completely ridiculous and unnatural. And because it is so ridiculous and unnatural, it makes people psychologically unstable and it inhibits scientific progress and a proper understanding of what it is that the human being actually is in the universe and the role that our existence plays in the fabric and the mechanism of the universe. Now, this mind, body, and soul concept also applies to the ancient belief that the planets are gods and that the earth is a female mother god called by the Greeks Gaia, called by the Jews Malkut and Shekinah. And the Hopi Indians and other Indians I've talked to believe very much that the earth is a god, is the mother, and is the source of life, and that the whole earth is a living being. When you cut roads into the earth, when you strip mine a mountain away, you are creating scars on the face of the earth, is the way that it was described to me by a Yavapai Apache Indian. And I have some deeper insights into all of that life, the earth is the source of life, and that life is the giving of order to the elements, to matter, to minerals, into life forms. And these forms initially probably microorganisms that developed into multicellular, more complex organisms that developed into plants and animals that have tissues and organs, and the animals have a brain and a central nervous system and the ability to sense the environment so that we can acquire other living organisms as food sources in an ecosystem with a food chain, and so that we can acquire mates, so that life transition from asexual reproduction in multiple forms into sexual reproduction through the male and the female. And that requires mobility, that requires sense awareness, awareness of self, awareness of other, and the ever increasing brain. The earth has this same progress that takes place as life diversifies and mutates into various life forms that compile a ecosystem and a food chain. Again, life is always trying to grab onto matter and order it. And the higher forms of life consume the more simple forms of life in order to generate greater and greater order out of all the matter of the earth. And the logical consequence of all this ultimately is to convert all the matter on the earth into a food chain and an ecosystem that turns the earth into one integrated living organism. The atmosphere respirates with plants and animals in the process of CO2 and O2, and human beings play a role in that, in generating CO2 and consuming oxygen. And the plants play a role in that, in consuming CO2 and generating O2. And so the atmosphere and the plants and the animals are almost like a lung organ system that respirates. The same thing goes on in the oceans. The soil is like our digestive tract, where microorganisms putrefy living matter and break it down into mineral elements and into substances that can be consumed by plants and animals and rendered into the ordered form of life. And we need this diversity of various life forms to create these food chains and ecosystems which allow life to diversify into every environment and to convert the matter that it confronts in that environment into the building blocks of life, into amino acids, into peptide chains, into proteins, into DNA, into cell structures. And it's conceivable that the entire earth can be rendered into this life process of converting all the matter of the earth into this one integrated, gigantic ecosystem that becomes its own individualized life form, its own living, integrated, living organism. Now, human beings came along as the highest form of this brain, this mind. The body is the earth itself. Human beings provide the mind and want to regulate the soul of the earth. Now, that creates a competition among various types of human beings. And it is a competition that the enemy is determined to win. So the enemy wants to control every thought that we have so that it controls the entire mind of the earth. They want to be, as a tribe, all the brain cells, all the neurons, the spinal cord, the entire central nervous system of the earth. And they have taken over the media, they've taken over news organizations, they've taken over academia, politics around the globe, so that their thoughts are the thoughts of the entire earth. They want to geoengineer the entire earth and structure the body of the earth artificially. Their mythology teaches that a creator God, and this is not exclusive to them by any means, but their mythology does teach that a creator God created through divine design the earth and all of its creatures, through the intelligent design of the first intellect of their God. But they claim that their God was a buffoon and a malevolent asshole who was unaware of the proper form that the universe should take, and therefore created a flawed universe, which is actually a prison. It is a hell into which the enemy has been exiled from paradise. So we have a tumorous brain controlling the earth. We have a suicidal, mentally ill brain in the form of this collective tribe that controls the earth as its mind, that wants to kill itself, wants to destroy the earth because it believes the earth is a flawed creation. It believes that the earth is inherently and completely evil and is the realm of the Gentiles, who likewise are composed of material chaos of the earth and have to be destroyed in order for the Jews to use their intelligent design to create a new world. And they describe the world that we live in, which was created by supposedly the intelligent design of the creator God, whom the tribe hates, just as they hate its creation, the earth, on which they believe they are exiled, not only in the prison of the earth, but in the corpse of flesh, which forms its own prison, which they seek to escape. This body with its appetites, desires, and lusts, this body that has two sexes so it can reproduce, they hate that and they want to destroy that and replace it with 600,000 immortal androgynes, as I've been describing for a very long time. So we have a tumor, and we have a mentally disturbed mind in the form of this enemy tribe that is controlling the earth. It also wants to be the soul of the earth. And remember that I said that the soul is this intermediary between the body and the mind that binds them, that is the intercessor, that is the breath that animates the body so that the body can serve as the vessel and the vehicle for the mind. they want to also be the soul that communicates from the mind of the earth, being them and them alone, to the Godhead. And they do that by creating all the religions and the religious mindset of all the peoples on the earth. They manufactured Judaism, they manufactured Christianity and Islam and Marxism. All of these religious belief systems were manufactured by this enemy tribe to serve the ultimate purpose of committing collective suicide, of destroying the earth. This Jewish mind of the earth is suicidal, that wants to annihilate the earth and all the beings on the earth, wants to wipe away all of the natural ecosystems and food chains, ultimately wants to make Gentiles a part of its food chain at the banquet feast of the righteous, ushering in the Messiah and the world to come, Olam Haba, after they have succeeded in this collective suicide of the earth as a living organism of the present world, Olam Hazeh. So this artificial distinction into this trichotomy, this tripartite nature of everything, ultimately produced also this concept of the Trinity, where God has to assume body so that God can serve as an intermediary and intercessor between man and the mind of God. So in the New Testament, this is encoded in the original Greek, which lost its meaning when translated into English. And in the original Greek, there were three forms of life that were presented. Bios being the body, Zoe being the mind, the intellect, and psyche being the soul, were all translated simply as life, so that Christians reading it in English, all of this is lost upon them. And while the original church fathers, who were aware of what the Jews had engineered in Christianity, understood this trichotomy, this tripartite nature, the later Christians tried to corrupt it into the idea that you did have bios, but that Zoe represented also psyche, that the mind and the soul were one thing, and they generally refer to that one thing as the spirit, and they created a dichotomy and discarded what is really written into the Greek of the New Testament as the trichotomy, the tripartite nature of body, mind, and soul. And so the Christians have been misleading themselves and everyone else into this misconception of the body being evil and of the appetites, desires, and lusts of the body being an inducement and temptation to sin that will produce condemnation in the lake of fire of hell, which is in the center of the earth. And this idea that the spirit has to escape the corpse of flesh of the body and the prison of the earth to return from the exile of Adam and Eve on the earth to the paradise of heaven, where the soul can then combine with the soul of God. All of this was heavily influenced by the Neoplatonists, who much better understood the Platonic concept and the much older concepts of the Orphic, Samothracian, and Eleusinian mystery religions of the body, mind, and soul, and the idea that Plato symbolically formulated of the charioteer and the black horse and the white horse engaged in an internal struggle within the human being to pull us down or lift us up. The American Indians, again, had a much better concept of the idea of balance, that nature provides a balance, and when nature and the ecosystems and the food chain gets out of balance, life gets destroyed and the earth is harmed. This concept of the good and the evil is inherently designed to generate imbalance in favor of whatever is defined as good, or among the enemy, whatever is defined as evil. The Christians want to create imbalance in themselves and in the world in the name of elevating good. The enemy wants to create imbalance and gain control and commit suicide of the earth and eliminate the Gentiles in the name of pursuing evil. They, of course, disguise all of this, and what is perceived by general humanity as goodness is perceived by the enemy as evil, and what is in general perceived by humanity as evil is perceived by the enemy as good. Everything is inverted, and it's very difficult for people to understand. You have to study it for a long time and contemplate it to really grasp what is going on and why it is that the Jews perceive a righteous being, Jesus Christ, as being Satan and equating it with their evil, and then seeing themselves doing all these horrible things as being good. It is very difficult for normal people to grasp and come to terms with all that. And that makes it very difficult for me to teach you what this is really all about. And it takes time and study. So the Jews want to be the mind of the living organism of the earth. They want to be the soul, and they want to be the body. And they can become the body by killing off all of the other living organisms and by utilizing Gentiles as the peak of the food chain. And once the Gentiles are consumed, to artificially engineer the entire earth, just as they believe it was an intelligent design of God. They will become the new God, and they will become the God of the planet Earth. They will become the Shekinah collectively as the Jewish people, being individual neurons of this brain controlling this living organism. And they will create robotics and artificial intelligence as this next phase of life out of evolution, out of ecosystems, out of naturally evolved food chains, into this artificially geoengineered system that they want to manufacture with the help of the artificial intelligence, which they are using Gentiles to manufacture. Primarily, they want Indians, East Indians, to manufacture all of this because they believe that the East Indians are closest to the mind of primordial chaos and will most effectively create the artificial intelligence of primordial chaos that they want to create, as opposed to the divine soul of order. They want the soul of chaos to reign, and they want to destroy the divine order of the earth and replace it with the disorder of chaos that they geoengineer. They believe that this is primordial chaos. It is more ancient, it is more powerful, and it is more eternal. So now for my paid subscribers, I'm going to go over and explain this in greater detail, and I'm going to explain this East Indian Hindu concept, this Aryan concept of the third eye and of intuition and of being able to see and perceive much more clearly in the mind's eye what is actually going on in reality in the universe, to be able to see past, present, and future all at once to have intuition, to have premonition, and to have a proper understanding of the past and the role that humanity plays in the material structure of the universe, the mechanism of the universe.